Hello, everybody. Welcome to one more session of Bego's web seminar for professionals. My name is Marcio Garcia dos Santos. I'm part of the education, clinical research, and business development team. We hope you all are in very good health. Before we introduce our speaker, I would like to thank Mrs. Angelica Jacob from the Global Marketing Department for the organization of this session. The topic of today will be same-day digital indirect restorations, 3D printing workflow, and we have the pleasure to have with us our key opinion leader and friend from Turkey, Dr. Erhan Çömlekoğlu, whom is graduate of EG University School of Dentistry, attended the prosthesis program at the same university, and graduated with the PhD degree at prosthodontics. He's professor and resident at the Department of Prosthodontics, School of Dentistry at the EG University, Izmir, Turkey. Completed several scientific projects supported by national and international institutions. Was honored more than 30 national and international scientific awards. And with these projects, he authored more than 70 articles in peer-reviewed scientific journals in field of adhesive and implant dentistry and established CAD/CAM restorative laboratory at dental school. His clinical practice is limited to prosthodontics at the Department of Prosthodontics School of Dentistry, EG University. And Dr. Çömlekoğlu is intensively involved in scientific research regarding adhesive dentistry and implant dentistry. And his current research interest particularly covers implant periodontal interaction and their clinical outcomes. Erhan, my friend, thanks a lot for your time and presence today. As always, after the presentation, we will have a question and answer session, and you can place your questions during the whole presentation. Wishing us all a very pleasant time, I give the words to Dr. Çömlekoğlu.
Dear friends, Marcio, thank you so much for the invitation. From my side, it's a big pleasure to be with the Bego family, as always. So thank you once more again for this very, very valuable invitation. Let's start then. And also to our friends, please do not hesitate to ask any question anytime. You can write in the chat box, I guess. It's always available. So tonight, I want to share a kind of daily routine on chairside 3D print restorations, and it will be mostly a clinical presentation. Previously, in our chairside workflow, all the time we were milling or grinding restorations out of prefabricated blocks, as you know. In this context, the system on the screen, the so-called SEDEX system, was and maybe is still a very good device set. Me also worked with it for more than 15 years. But now we have another option for indirect same-day cases, again with a similar workflow. Instead of milling, we can also print certain kind of restorations. I will describe them in the lecture, maybe 15 minutes later. And if we have the design software in the office, we can immediately finish the case, maybe within 1 or 2 hours. So it is called the green zone approach, which means every step can be finished in the clinic. However, if you don't want to make an investment on the software because it's a huge cost nowadays, it is possible to receive a design from a different source. Now, maybe it is not totally so-called in-office approach because we outsource the design, but still can be chairside if the design can be got in a very short period of time, for instance, within only 15 minutes. It's possible nowadays, and I will show 1 or 2 artificial intelligence cloud systems on this. So in this manner, this version resembles the green zone type of workflow again, but if you cannot get the design within, for example, half an hour, it's a hybrid mode, green, red, and green mode, because we outsource the design, as I told before. In fact, we are very familiar with printing because we are manufacturing temporaries out of resins for a long period of time. There are several advantages of this print temporaries. Besides timing, it is fast, as we know, but due to the proper design possibility and high effective polymerization, we can work on open wound cases like this, this type of ovate pontic interventions, and we have very good clinical outcomes in this manner because the material is a bit more friendly to the tissues than the conventional liquid and powder polymetal methacrylates. However, several years ago, Bego launched a permanent resin for printing definitive restorations. It was, I think, the first in the world that the Bego did. And now we can print temporaries together with definitive crowns and also impression trays or guides, if you like. Again, in the clinic, we can finish it in the clinic without any cargo. Now, let's start the clinical side of the presentation, and let me share one of our first patients that we worked printing on. She is my PhD student. She was carrying direct resin veneers for more than 8 years. And as you may notice, now it's time to replace them due to some gingival inflammation and also asymmetry on zeniths on the gingival portion and also surface irregularities of the composite resins. It was very surprising when we started removing the resin from the surface of the tooth because we thought it was as a composite resin restoration. The margin was located echogingivally, but after grinding and dry grinding, we noticed that the margins were very subgingival, approximately 1.5 millimeters subgingival. So unfortunately, we made a cord retraction, and also I will describe the preparation and retraction techniques for this kind of restorations later on. So we made a double cord scanning. I think we used prime scan, and also we outsourced the design to our local dental laboratory. They immediately send us the designs. We tried to reshape gingiva. I mean, to make the gingival zenith more symmetrical, we decided to use temporaries, but we will manufacture them from the permanent resin of Bego Varsio Crown Plus. So we outsourced the design, but as I said before, if you don't want to outsource the design, now there are some softwares that you can reach online. They are artificial intelligence-based designing softwares. You can easily make the design and also correct it immediately. And if you're a good user, I think you may get this design within 10 minutes. So the patient can sit on the dental unit without standing up and finish the restoration chair side. But again, we get the designs, we outsource them from our local dental laboratory via internet. And later on, they send us the designs via internet, and we printed them out Warsaw Smile Crown Plus. You may notice there are not only 4 laminate veneers, but also some inlays and the crowns, and also a trial of Maryland Bridge. At the same time, you can place up to 22 dental restorations on this tray of the printer. And approximately it lasts 35 minutes to manufacture this type of job. Of course, we have to clean the remnants, the unpolymerized resins out from the surface. You can use ethanol or isopropanol, and we have to use ultrasonic cleaner for this purpose. I think 5 minutes in the first session and 3 minutes in another bottle for the second session is enough. Later on, we have to remove the irregularities on the surface. So at max, 1.5 bar of sandblasting with alumina is very sufficient. For my clinical approach, I don't sandblast the inner surface, I mean the adhesive surface. This time, I only blast the outer surface of the restoration. Later on, we need to polymerize it up to max, and we can use AutoFlash for this purpose. It is the best polymerization device, I think, on the market. it is not a continuous light source. There are several blasts, explosions of light. And for each restoration, for each session, we apply 1,500 explosions for outer surface and again 1,500 explosions for the inner surface. So before finishing the surface, we again removed the surface irregularities. The surface is rough, and we use some certain silicone rubbers to make the surface, for example, in the first step with the coarse one, we make the surface around 50 micrometers of roughness. And for example, for Comet, the revolution per minute shouldn't exceed 6,000. It is very important. If you exceed, the surface glossing or surface polishing will not be so sufficient, so effective. And later on, if you like, you can decrease the surface roughness down to 20 micrometers with the fine rubber tip. So our restoration is cleaned, polymerized, and polished to a certain degree, but it's not enough for every patient. You can characterize the surface, for example, some stains or some effects, some enamel effects with the blue one, for example. We use generally FOCO or GC for this purpose. The characterization set for FOCO is very nice, but the glaze, the chemical glaze, GC optic glaze is the best one, I guess, because easy glaze is a bit viscose, with a high viscosity and a bit yellowish. So later on, we finish the surface, characterize and polish it, chemically glaze it, then light polymerize it. And for this case, as I will remove the restorations, I used a temporary resin. Again, it is from FOCO company, Bifix Temp. This is the intraoral situation right 1 week after the cementation. Let me remind you, our first goal is to make the gingival zenith symmetrical. But as I intended to make these kind of restorations temporarily, the situation after 1 month was very surprising, because it was like permanent veneers that we make from ceramics materials, glass ceramic materials. And also after 6 months, because we had still some slight gingival inflammation on the left part, as you see, between the central and the lateral teeth. So we waited for 11 months to replace them with ceramic veneers. But again, the surface gloss, the gingival reaction is very nice after approximately 1 year. So she was my PhD student. She knows very well the occlusion. She lost her canine guidance and wanted me to prepare the canines as well for canine guidance. She is young. Then we promised her to finish the restorations from glass ceramic materials. So we removed the veneers after maybe more than 1 year, and also prepared the canines for veneers, and then scanned it again. I will describe it a bit later on, but I don't prefer to use gingival cords for scanning. But again, this case was, the margins were very subgingival at the beginning, so I used double cord technique. So this time we outsourced the design again, but from a famous person in Turkey, Can Tolay, made these restorations, these designs, and they were a present from him to us. Again, we used glass ceramic material for this purpose. We first milled it, and we decided to make a small cut back on the incisal edges only. And later on, we made a translucent incisal edge via feldspathic ceramic material. And we made the definitive cementation later on after the preparation. These are the veneers for canine, and these are the veneers for centrals. And later on, we finished the case via glass ceramic materials, central duo. All the gingivas were symmetrical now. The gingival inflammation was removed. But again, after 1 year, there were no difference between the restorations that we printed out from Varsayov Smart Crown Plus and milled out from Self-Roduo. So after this case, I decided to use this printed restorations or this print material on the anterior side, aesthetic zone as well. So at the end of the presentation, last part of the presentation, I will try to show that patients as well. So let's remind some rules about preparation. Of course, it's a must. Schillenburg stated it first. But it is important for printed restorations because when you compare the adhesion force, adhesion strength, adhesive strength between the glass ceramic materials and printed or milled composite resin restorations, the adhesive strength of glass ceramics is a bit higher. So if my tooth, the abutment height of my tooth after preparation exceeds 4 millimeters, it's okay. But it's less than 4 millimeters, I think we may shift from printed restorations to glass ceramic ones, because with print restorations, we have a resilience within the material, and that makes a shear bond failure between the interface of printed resin and the adhesive material. Again, the second rule, the retention and resistance forms, as we know, if the approach, the occlusal approach angle or the convergence of the preparation exceeds 15 degrees. And also the third option, if the abutment height is less than 4 millimeters and the angle is more than 15 millimeters, we shouldn't make printed restorations. It's important. So the first limitation for printed restorations is at least 4 millimeters of abutment height and 15 degrees of conical convergence. So the second rule for design as well, and also for preparation, the material thickness. For most of the materials like glass ceramics or zirconia, we have two different material thicknesses for two different parts of the mouth. In the anterior region, it is a bit different, and in posterior region, it's a bit wider. But for printed restorations, at least 1 millimeter in margin, in axial walls, and in occlusal or incisal edges, we need clearance. So it is very important for the preparation side. And the next thing is margin type. As you know, we have three main margin types. The first one is the horizontal ones. I'm very sorry for the Turkish words. It was a video I made, so I couldn't change them on the video. For horizontal ones, we have two subgroups, shoulder or chamfer. For printed restorations, of course, the optimum margin type is chamfer. And the second margin type is vertical one, like we call it knife edge, feather edge, or chisel. It's a strict limitation that we cannot prefer this type of margin type for printed restorations. And the third one is bevel or oblique type margin finish. Again, it's not suitable. The only margin type that is suitable for printed restorations is chamfer. And the best method, maybe it's a German method, as I know, because I learned this method from Reinhard Mark's course in Münster University in 2003. She showed me how to prepare a uniform thickness, a margin with uniform thickness. It is the round burr technique. It's very easy. If you hold this burr within 30 to 45 degrees, you can get a uniform thickness in margin. And it's very fast, as you know. So this was a root canal treated central. We can immediately make a smooth and homogeneous margin with round burr technique. And later on the axial walls, we can continue with the chamfer burrs. And also we can use it for removing the undercuts that the round burr created. And we make a rough preparation first. Of course, the margin is above the gingiva. So each time after preparing the tooth with black or yellow burrs, we have to finish the margin with red burrs, red belted burrs, because the surface roughness of red belted burrs are around 50 micrometers, which is suitable for scanning or making an impression. So the most important thing for margin is burr tip location, because as you may notice, we have three different burrs in terms of the tip design. The first one is the flat tip, the second one is a rounded tip, and the third one is a flame. So the most important thing is for the chamfer, the round tip burr, because we have to work with a limited thickness. We have to work with the half thickness of this burr. It is very important. If we succeeded, then we will have a horizontal margin. But the main mistake that we mostly do is to work in full thickness. So if we make the margin with the full thickness of this burr, we will have unsupported enamel edges. So in this presentation, I will call them enamel horns. So what is the enamel horn? It is unsupported enamel. Mostly, if you do not scan the tooth, if you make an impression, for example, with a polyether impression material, yes, you can make the impression of this part as well, but after gypsum was set and tried to be removed from the impression, these small edges are cracked into and left into impression. So the model and the prepared tooth are not the same. So the adaptation of the crowns will be compromised. So the second one, scanning. Of course, you can scan it very well, but if you scan and make a crown fit very perfectly on this margin, after a certain period of time, we will have abfraction type defects, because it is unsupported and it can be easily removed from the margin area. So the best thing is to be very careful, and maybe after working with round tip burrs, finish the margin line with a flat tip burr. So we can work with these burrs in full thickness. It's not important. We won't have any unsupported enamel. But if we don't want to be so careful, if we want to be faster, we can use burrs with pin tip. There's a pin without any diamond particles on at the tip of the burr. So it's very easy to work with them in order to make a uniform thickness margin. So you can place the tip, the pin part, inside the gingival sulcus, and it makes an immediate retraction during preparation, and you won't have any hurt, any harm on soft tissues. It is fantastic. It's a fantastic burr. And also, as it is a red belted burr, the transition between the restoration and the tooth at the margin area will be very perfect. And also, we can work with these burrs on the posterior teeth as well. So how about the bleeding problem? Of course, for enamel, we can use high-speed turbines. For dentin, we can use red-belted handpieces, and also we can use tungsten carbide burrs. But for mucosa, rotating instruments like very high-speed handpieces or red-belted ones can make a bleeding situation on gingiva when touched. So in order to get rid of it, we can use sonic burrs, sonic tips, and also with, of course, spatial device, sonic device. And you can touch gingiva. It won't hurt gingiva, but it will prepare the margin area, especially in diastema cases. They are very useful. And also it's very useful when we are preparing the margin subgingivally. And also, again, a diastema between a temporary on implants and the tooth. So I have to seal the margin subgingivally in order to get a good emergence profile. As you see, it won't hurt soft tissue, but it will make a preparation on the margin area, and it's fast. So they are more than 30 years that are on the market. So The next important thing is rounded incisal edges should be created for printed restorations in order to decrease the complication rate of fractures, restoration fractures. I mostly use soft legs type of discs in order to make rounded edges, and also for laminate veneers again, sharp edges should be immediately avoided for printed restorations. So the minimal thickness in exocad shows that they are perfectly rounded. Let's move on to gingival retraction. Maybe the most important thing for the health of the soft tissues. So, Erhan, how can you describe a proper gingival retraction? It's easy. So the tooth is white, the soft tissue is pink. I have to see a black line between white and pink. It's very important. If you cannot see this black line, it means that there's a plateau between the margin and the soft tissue, and the dental technician now will draw a line, the margin line, but I think it won't be a proper line because the dental technician will draw it anywhere because he cannot notice or differentiate the margin, exact margin line. So in this type of restorations, I try to show there are always a black line between the pink and the white. It's very important again for crown restorations, preparations, for laminate veneer preparations, it doesn't matter. Always circumferential black line should be made. How? So we have two different retraction methods clinically mostly. The first one is cord retraction, which means we have a cord, but we have to be very careful not to hurt connective tissue attachment, which is indicated as red in this animation, but we can hurt junctional epithelium because after removing the cord, 14 days later, we will have a total healing. If we only compromise the adhesion of junctional epithelium, it's very important. But if you hurt connective tissue attachment, forget about healing, especially in thin phenotype patients. So you will have a definitive gingival recession again on thin phenotype patients. So this is the thing that we shouldn't think. But my PhD student, the margins that were made during the composite resin veneers were so deep. My main goal is to distinguish the margin area and show it to dental technician. So of course I had to hurt connective tissue attachment. In this case, as you saw before in my slides, we had a slight gingival recession 1 year later. So it was my intention as well, because the margin was located 1.5 millimeter below the margin line or the free gingival line. So after recession, I have a more cleansable margin with this patient. It was my intention, but if we try to make a very good dentistry, which is called fine dentistry, we may use retraction pastes. With these pastes, you can push the tip of the dispenser in the junctional epithelium. You can hurt it, you can rupture this area, and together with rupturing, you can apply the material by pushing the gun, and this material will flow outwards. It won't hurt connective tissue attachment, as well as there is aluminum chloride inside, which is an astringent and which is very effective for stopping the bleeding. As you see, I'm hurting junctional epithelium. I create a rupture in the junctional epithelium part, and together with this movement, I place the material in order to stop bleeding, and this will make a vasoconstriction effect on free gingiva, and the gingiva will be retracted for 30 minutes and without any bleeding. Now let me show you the start point, and right after 2 minutes of gingival retraction with retraction paste. Again, I made a scanning before retraction. You can see, I'm not sure if you see my pointer, you can see soft tissue on the margin, but right after retraction, I again made a scanning. The gingiva was removed from the margin area. It was retracted. Again, it's a totally successful retraction in horizontal and in vertical manners, and it is a temporary retraction. 30 minutes later, you will face the same situation right before as before the retraction. And 7 days later, you will have a total healing if you rupture junctional epithelium. So preparation rules are okay, retraction rules are a bit okay. Now just move to occlusal compass because we don't only make single restorations or 3 or 4 restorations with this printed resins. We make several multiple restorations at the same time, and occlusion for these restorations is very important because printable resins are more fragile than zirconia as well. So it's very important to use occlusal compass, which is for occlusion, protrusion, mid-protrusion, retrotrusion, and retroprotrusion. We select all these at the same time. Of course, our main goal is to create the red areas, which is called occlusal areas, and we should diminish the colored areas, or we should remove the colored areas out of the red ones. So in this manner, in my last case, we will show it intraorally. In this manner, we will avoid dynamic intersections, dynamic interferences in occlusion, but we will have static contacts in centric occlusion, so-called centric occlusion. So the last part for theoretical knowledge is cementation. There are, of course, we have to use adhesive resin cements for printable resins, and there is a trio for this purpose, which is first you have to create a roughness on the surface, then you have to clean it at max, and the last one, if it is suitable, you can use additional chemistry in order to create a higher degree of adhesion. So first we have to make a roughness on the printed crowns. In the beginning of the lecture, I told that I only sandblast the outer surface first, and right before adhesive cementation within the patient, I sandblast the inner surface, because during drying, there may be some blood, some, for example, remnants of the bacterial plague on the tooth, and the adhesive surface can be contaminated with them. In order to remove it, the best method is sandblasting, because I need surface roughness as well at this time. Again, at max 1.5 bar of sandblasting with alumina, which can be 50 to 110 micrometers in thickness of the grain size, can be used. Later on, we have to use ethanol for cleaning the remnants of the sandblast particles, and if you like, it's not needed, but according to instructions of the manufacturer of each individual resin cement, you can use silanes. For example, FOCO maybe doesn't recommend silane on composite resin materials, but literature says that if you use it, there is an evaporative ingredient inside, so you will have a surface without any water remnant. So I use silane in order to super dry the adhesive surface of the restoration. So again, I will show some cases for cementation. Just skip to polymerization. For polymerization, as you know, light is very important. Again, if you're using dual cure resin cements, again, you have to use, or you have to get a very good degree of light polymerization values. For example, I think for more than 6 joules for each millimeter square, you have to get that energy level. So in this slide, it was a picture from my previous scientific articles. You see some samples which are 0.5 millimeters in thickness, and the first one is zirconia. You see the translucency of it. The second one is monolithic zirconia, the translucent zirconia. Again, I can notice the black belt, but again, it's not translucent, it's very opaque. And the third one is the best thing, feldspathic ceramic. The next one is low translucency glass ceramic. The next one is opalescence, opal type lithium disilicate restoration. And the last one is lucite reinforced glass ceramic. As you see, all materials have different translucencies, and it is very important for light transmission, and it is very important for the polymerization of the resin. So this article is very important. I advise to make a photo of it or screen capture of it. It says that for resins, for example, for printable materials, if the restoration thickness is 0.5 millimeters in thickness, you will have only 64% of the light on the composite resin cement. If it is 1 millimeter, half, or if it is 2 millimeters, only 1/4 of the light will be transmitted to the composite resin for polymerization. So what does it mean? We call it filter effect. We have a restoration, so the restoration will stop or reflect back some of the light. So a certain amount of light will be transmitted to the composite resin. If your restoration thickness is low, you will have more light on the surface. And also, if you use more translucent materials for the restoration, again, you will have more light on the surface for a good degree of polymerization. So the advice on the literature says that you cannot maybe measure the thickness on certain on all millimeter squares on the restoration. So the best thing is make a full polymerization, even you are using a dual cure cement. It says that for printable restorations, at least 40 seconds for each surface. But if the restoration thickness is more than 2 millimeters, 90 seconds for each surface. What does it mean, Erhan? It means, for example, for a full crown, if the thickness is around 2 millimeters, we have to make 90 seconds from the vestibular side and 90 seconds from the palatal side. To me, I add again 90 seconds from the incisor side. So for one restoration, more than 3 minutes of polymerization. So we don't need to make it so long, but it is advisable and it is important, even for dual cure resin cements. So let's finish the lecture with 2 sample cases. The first one is the crowns. We can make this type of crowns with printable resins. Again, for preparation, we have to create at least 1 millimeter of margin thickness. Again, we make scanning. We will create it from printed resins. Nowadays, if the patient is sensitive in terms of budget, we finish these type of restorations from printable resins, because glass ceramics and also zirconia may be a bit expensive for certain type of cases, for some patients, and also for pediatric crowns, for long-term temporaries also, we started to use printable resins for crown manufacturing. For example, if the child patient needs to use this restoration for more than 4 or 5 years, we use printable crowns. They are more budget effective, cost effective when compared with zirconia, monolithic zirconia. And also we can finish it immediately within the patient, within the child patient. Yes. Of course, we don't have a very good incisor translucency with printed resin materials. So what should we do? If the neighboring teeth, the neighboring natural teeth has mamelons or some glassy-like incisal edge, yes, printable resins can be seen more opaque when you compare. But the most important thing, the multiple restoration cases. For example, I will show you a sample case that we finished with tabletops with composite resin materials. Here is the patient. The periodontal health was compromised in this patient, and he had very severe periodontal treatment. After periodontal treatment, the periodontist said that there was a flare on the anterior region, and so the occlusion was collapsed. The vertical dimension of occlusion was decreased. If we restore the vertical dimension of occlusion, then he will make a splint on the anteriors and keep them in a healthy situation. So we first measured the decrease in vertical dimension of occlusion. It was 2 millimeters for this patient. And later on, we made a jig in the anterior position and we scanned. After the scan, with scanners, you can see the occlusal clearance at once. I am not sure if you see my pointer, but this is a ruler. This is a ruler. It says that for red areas, it's touching. But for dark blue ones, yes, there is 1 millimeter of intermaxillar gap. So without making mock-ups, also you can finish the preparation immediately by only scanning 2 or 3 times more. Later on, we made some occlusal preparations. We removed existing composite resin restorations and rescan it. Again, we opened the intermaxillar gap ruler chart. It says that, yes, you have now very sufficient intermaxillary gap, I mean occlusal clearance between maxilla and the mandible. You can scan it. And our dental technician, I want to call his name Berk Denzer. He's a very good technician. He made it on Blender. So you don't have to invest huge money on Exocad, InLab, 3Shape, or the other dental wings. You can use an open source, which is called a cost-free software. But of course, it's not as user-friendly as Exocad, but a young dental technician can create these type of restorations within a very short certain period of time. Of course, 8 occlusal veneers are not enough. We have to keep canine guidance during dynamic occlusion. He designed 2 palatal veneers for the upper canines. Here's the situation that we were very surprised after iTero scanning. The occlusal contacts on Blender, on the digital design, were nearly as same as the mock-up that we created in the patient's mouth. It was very surprising because we don't get these results with 3Shape 5 or Prime. At this time, we are using 3 of them at the same time. It is important. The scanning precision is very important. Reliability is very important for this type of cases. Later on, you can mill them out of blocks, discs like Grandio discs, or you can print them out of Varsio Smart Crown printable materials. After manufacturing, here is the situation. I'm showing this because I want to make a small recommendation, which is designing the restoration with offset, the marginal offset. The offset will be located on the printable material, printed material. Is recommendable. Here are the palatal veneers for canine guidance occlusion. And later on, one of our PhD students made this wonderful cementation protocol. First, we have to clean the occlusal surface with pumice, and later on, we have to acetach because these restorations will get lots of occlusal forces. After waiting for 30 seconds per each tooth, all the occlusal surfaces are now acid etched, and later on we are using a multi-mode bonding agent on each surface. You have to apply it on one or two teeth at max at the same time, and later on we finish the other two. We make it thin, and later on we should light polymerize them, as Pascal Magne stated on his last article. So we used a light cured resin material for luting. After preparation of the inner surfaces, we luted them with heavy flow material, and again 90 seconds of light from each aspect should be applied, because they are only light polymerized. As we know, the most important thing, we were using Emax restorations for more than 10 years for this type of occlusal vertical dimension restoration cases, but we have to make a margin, a chamfer margin for each occlusal veneer, which means lots of tissue loss. But with printable restorations or millable, milled composite resins, you don't need to make a margin preparation. You can make them on a feather edge margin without maybe touching the margin. So we luted them all. We cleaned the remnants. Of course, we cleaned the dental proximal areas, and later on we will shift to the finishing. But of course, we have to lute the upper restoration, because now, after restoring the vertical dimension, we had a gap between the canines. We luted the palatal veneers at the same time, at the same appointment. We made the splints, retainer, and we checked the canine guidance. It's very important for the long-term success of the posteriors. And here's the situation. We have to make an offset. Why? Because we will finish it. Printable resins are softer than enamel, so you can easily finish them with yellow or white belt burrs, and also we will make the transition smooth. We will check the occlusion. There are some dehydrated areas. We are aware of it. 1 week later, nothing will be left. So we will check the occlusion. We have small non-touchy points, so we made occlusion, in static occlusion, we made maximum intercuspidation. Later on, we checked lateral dynamic occlusion, so we need canine guidance, but again, as we don't use face bow in this patient or macho in this patient, we have some early spots. For example, on 46, we have a very dangerous red spot. We removed them. We rechecked the occlusion with occlusal compass that we make with articulation papers. In the third one, now we are sure we managed it. We have canine guidance without interferences on the posteriors, and then we sent the patient home. But he was tired on that day, so we will make an occlusion check 1 week later. Here's the 1 week later situation. You see the dehydrated areas are, so static occlusion was okay, is very good, just as we planned. And in the dynamic occlusion, again, we didn't touch, I guess, any point. It was very nice. And we sent the patient to periodontist again. So here is the situation right after the 1 week control of the restorations. So Marcio, it's all over for today. It was a small journey, of us with printable resins. But from a different perspective, of course, because endocrowns, crowns, and laminate veneers, we all do. We all do. We all use this material in our routine life, and also maybe it is not indicated yet, but we started to finish implant-supported restorations on abutments with printable materials. So that's all for today.
Yeah, but thank you very much, Erhan. What a beautiful small journey, as you said. A small journey, because I really believe in web seminars, this period of 45 minutes is, yeah, with your experience and teaching for so long, and if may I put my experience, I believe 45 minutes is what we should make in web seminars. And the way you made, like, very clinical, with lots of clinical case, lots of movies, very beautiful material. Congratulations of your so beautiful material, and in this new world of of 3D printing. It's a very exciting, and thanks for sharing your experience, of the 3D printing world. So thank you very much. We received here, from the colleague Natalie from Bego Benelux, the very nice presentation. So thank you, and I agree with Natalie. So thank you very much. How long are you working with the Varseus Myocrown Plus in the Izmir University, Erhan?
I think in our routine life, maybe more than 2 years, we are using printable crowns, and now maybe every day we finish more than 10 restorations in our faculty, and maybe 10 of our PhD students apply this kind of restorations, can apply this type of restorations. And frankly, I may say that we have also some milling machines like MCXL from Dancefly Sirona. We don't use it for more than 1 year. So printable restorations have a very good margin fit. Of course, we had some complications. As I know, so far we had 3 decementations. It's not a score, because within hundreds of cases, 3 decementations is not an important thing. But we are very happy with the results.
Well, yeah, as you said, it's at the end of the day, it's a statistic, casuistic, and as you said, if you're doing 10 per day free dissemination, then biology is always biology. Something happen, but wow, more than 2 years, and it's a great casuistic. So nice for us to hear, and basically doing everything: inlays, onlays, veneerings, and and tabletops, as you showed us.
We can say that, for example, our restorative department mostly do inlays, onlays, and our endodontics department makes endocrowns every day. And maybe we are conducting 4 clinical studies at the same time. One on implant crowns, 2 on endocrowns. But I will talk clinically in this session. I can say that the picture will be not subtractive, will be additive. I believe in it. And the material is so nice. But maybe a recommendation from a 2-year user will be, we have to finish the surface in a proper way. For example, force mechanical, and then we can use chemical glazing and also characterization. I can say that. Maybe a small limitation of this material is only the surface characteristics, optical characteristics, after 2 or more years. If you don't finish the surface properly, you may have some yellowish appearance, as we can get it from Grandio block, GC7 Smart block is the same. And for Braxers, maybe because the flexural strength of this material is around 150, we can say, between 160. So, of course, monolithic zirconia will be the material of choice for this type of patients. We shouldn't dream to use this composite resin material on Braxers, but for single restorations, it's perfect. And again, maybe I didn't have so much time in the beginning of the lecture, but the chairside digital workflow is perfect with resins, printable resins. It's perfect. And also, I forgot to say, the cost for each unit in Turkey is 1.2 euros.
Yeah, yeah. Not only Turkey, it's in general now. So yeah, it's for the colleagues, and yeah, this is one of the I would say the great advantages, and also now in but I believe as you said, not one alternative more now. So again, the word planning, not planning of the case, but to have this option for sure to have also this option in the future now. So as an option, as a chair side option, restorative option. I completely agree.
Marcio, sorry to interrupt you, because
No.
As I realized, I couldn't finish lecturing. Sorry for that. But the difference we faced between the milling and printing processes, milling is very technique sensitive in terms of preparation, tooth preparation. You have to prepare tooth perfectly. Otherwise, the restoration will not fit perfectly. But on printed restorations, you will always have a better marginal sealing, marginal adaptation with the restorations, because you can make some sharpie small points. You can leave these type of small points on the preparation side. Surface roughness is not a big issue. So the other advantage of printable restorations is it.
Yeah. Also in terms of machine, in terms of when you think about keeping of the machines, in terms of burns, now maintenance of the burns, and also in terms of machines.
Exactly. And also cost of machine. If it breaks down, I will put it into trash. It's nothing in terms of cost, but the milling machine is, yes, the spindles, rotors, lots of issues.
Yeah, I believe it will change the so to say this interface between dental lab and clinic will completely change in the next 5 years. This interface will be a revolution in the next 5 years, and not addictive restorative materials. I'm completely agree with you. Will be we are using now. We use it starting with Symphony, Adoro materials years and years ago. And I believe this is the new generation of this kind of materials that we started to use. I don't know, 15 years ago, more or less, and
totally
this
correct.
is the kind of the new generation of it. Yeah. Again, I would say thank you very much again for your collaboration, and it was a pleasure to listen to you and to have you again for your support always.
Pleasure from my side. Thank you. Thank you.
Also for everybody, we are reaching 1 hour, so thanks everybody for being with us again. Next month we're gonna have the last session of the year with the colleague Mia Bujan from Croatia. So yeah, hope to see you all again in 1 month. Thank you and have a nice evening, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye bye.